The Haunted Doll of Mumbai. The Curse of Munni. Chapter 1. The Gift with No Name. Have you ever looked into a doll's glassy eyes and felt, even for a split second, that something was looking back at you? Not just a trick of the light, not just your mind playing games, but something real, something alive, something watching. In the bustling, vibrant chaos of Mumbai, a city alive with honking rickshaws, crowded trains, and the constant hum of humanity, there exists a legend far darker than the neon lights and busy streets would suggest. A legend whispered in alleys, passed down from servant to child, from teacher to student. The legend of Munni. They say Munni wasn't always cursed. In fact, she was once just a beautiful porcelain doll, dressed in an old-fashioned pink and white frock, her hair neatly tied in braids with satin ribbons. Her eyes, dark, glossy, unblinking, were her most striking feature. Eyes that seemed to follow you. Eyes that never closed. Munni belonged to the Sharma family, a seemingly normal family, living in a quiet neighborhood in Bandra West. Mr. Sharma was a banker. Mrs. Sharma taught literature at a local school, and little Priya, their only daughter, was 5 years old when the doll first arrived. It was a gift. No one remembers who gave it, not even Mrs. Sharma. She insists to this day that it just appeared one morning on Priya's bed, wrapped in a delicate layer of old muslin cloth, tied with a golden string. There was no note, no box, just the doll and a smell of something sweet, like burnt sugar. Priya loved Munni instantly. She carried her everywhere, bathroom, dinner table, even to bed. But that's when the dreams began, terrible dreams. First, Priya didn't speak about them, just woke up screaming, clutching Munni to her chest, eyes wild with fear. "She's angry," she whispered one night when Mrs. Sharma tried to take the doll away. "She said she'll hurt you if I don't hold her." That was the first time the Sharmas noticed something was wrong. But it wouldn't be the last, because that was the night the hallway lights began to flicker. The first night, the family cat refused to enter Priya's room, and the first time Mrs. Sharma found the doll, not in Priya's arms, but sitting upright on the window ledge, staring at nothing, at everything. The air around Munni was always cold, too cold, even in the sweltering heat of May. Over the next few weeks, things escalated. Objects moved, doors slammed, whispers filled the hallways at night. And Munni never moved when watched, but they'd find her in different rooms, different poses, different moods. Sometimes she smiled, sometimes she didn't. One morning, Mr. Sharma woke up to find the word "mine" scratched into the wooden floor beside his bed, and beside it, Munni, seated politely, hands on her lap. That was when they called the priest. But what he found was just the beginning. Father Deshmukh had seen many things in his decades as a priest. He had blessed homes plagued by bad luck. He had counseled grieving families haunted by guilt. But the moment he stepped into the Sharma home, something shifted. The house didn't smell of incense or cleaning solution. It smelled metallic, cold, as if iron hung in the air. And when he entered Priya's room, he stopped dead in his tracks. There she was, Munni, sitting in the middle of the floor, arms stretched out like she was waiting for someone to pick her up. Father Deshmukh felt the hairs on his arms rise. He muttered a prayer beneath his breath and sprinkled holy water across the room. As the droplets fell, a breeze swept through the sealed windows, extinguishing the candle he had lit. Priya screamed. From the hallway, "Don't hurt her!" she shouted. "She said she'll burn your eyes out if you say another word." Mrs. Sharma held her daughter tightly, but the girl writhed in her arms, possessed with a strength that terrified her mother. The priest pressed on, opening his Bible, chanting scriptures in Sanskrit and Latin. But the room grew colder. The walls began to sweat. And then, a knock. 3 sharp, deliberate knocks from inside the wardrobe. Father Deshmukh froze. He turned slowly, approached the wooden doors and placed his hand against them. They were warm. No, hot, like something burning inside. He flung the doors open. Nothing, just clothes. But as he stepped back, he noticed Munni had moved. She was now by the window. No one had touched her, and behind her on the glass pane, written in reverse from the inside, was a word: stay. The priest left that evening pale and shaken. "I cannot help you," he said to Mr. Sharma. "This is older than I understand, older than our prayers." And with that, he fled the house. Mrs. Sharma broke down. Mr. Sharma, ever the rational man, suggested therapy, even hypnosis. But that night, Priya stood by her parents' bed at 3:03 a.m. smiling. Munni says she wants to play now. The next morning the house was silent. Not peaceful, not calm. Silent, like the breath had been sucked out of the walls. Mrs. Sharma found Priya sitting cross-legged in front of Munni, whispering to her. The doll sat propped on a red cushion, eyes staring forward, unmoving. "What are you saying, Priya?" her mother asked, voice soft and trembling. Priya didn't look away from the doll. "She's teaching me," she answered. "Teaching you what?" Priya turned slowly, her eyes glassy. "Her language." That day, the lights began to flicker in rhythm. The mirrors fogged despite no moisture, and every clock in the house stopped. At 3:03, they tried to leave. Mr. Sharma packed their suitcases, loaded the car, and begged his family to hurry. But the moment they stepped outside the gate, Priya screamed and collapsed. Blood poured from her nose. Her fingernails turned blue. And Munni was sitting on the front step, waiting. They carried Priya back inside. As soon as her feet crossed the threshold, she gasped and smiled. "She doesn't want us to leave," Priya said. That night, Mrs. Sharma locked the doll in the attic. She nailed the hatch shut. Munni stayed silent until 3:03 a.m. The banging started. From the ceiling, rhythmic, forceful, like fists against wood. Then came the sound of dragging, and then the attic door ripped open. The nails scattered across the floor. The doll was gone. Mrs. Sharma found her the next morning, sitting at the breakfast table, a tiny knife in her porcelain hand, and on the table, the family cat, lifeless. Its eyes gouged out, Mrs. Sharma sobbed as she buried the cat in the backyard. Priya didn't cry. She stood by the window, watching with unblinking eyes. She said it was hungry. Priya murmured that evening. "Who, beta?" her mother asked, barely above a whisper. "Munni," Priya said, turning slowly. She said it wasn't enough. That night, the temperature inside the house plummeted. Frost laced the windows. The taps released only black, sludgy water. The television turned on by itself at 3:03 a.m. static. Then the screen flickered. A frame, blurry, a doll's face, then darkness. Mr. Sharma, breaking under the pressure, took the doll, wrapped it in a sack and drove to the edge of the Mithi River. He hurled it into the black water and watched it sink. He returned home relieved, until the next morning, the doll was on the kitchen counter, dry, clean, smiling. Mrs. Sharma collapsed to the floor. That was the first night she dreamed of fire, of a burning child, and a doll, untouched by flames, watching from the shadows. That dream haunted Mrs. Sharma all day. She couldn't shake the image of the burning child, the screams, the crackling flames, the doll's motionless silhouette just beyond the fire. She searched through old newspapers, online forums, anything that might hint at where the doll could have come from. Most of it was fruitless, until she stumbled upon a thread buried deep within an old Mumbai supernatural forum. The post was from 2006. It spoke of a doll named Munni. It mentioned Bandra, and it ended with a chilling warning. If you see her eyes shift, it's already too late. The next evening, the Sharmas invited a local historian to the house, a woman named Savita Bhosale. She specialized in urban legends and relics from Mumbai's colonial past. Savita took one look at the doll and refused to go near it. "She's not a toy," she said. "She's a vessel." "A vessel for what?" Mr. Sharma asked. Savita's eyes flicked toward Priya, who stood silently in the corner, her hand in Munni's. "For rage," Savita whispered. "For something left behind." Later that night, Savita left behind a scroll wrapped in banana leaves, sealed with red wax. Inside was a faded script describing an incident from 1892, a fire at St. Teresa's orphanage. All the children perished, except one, a little girl with burn marks found clutching a porcelain doll. Her name was Munni. No one ever claimed her. She never spoke again. Days later, she disappeared from her hospital bed. Only the doll remained. Priya began drawing that same orphanage over and over again, but it was always burning, always with one girl standing at the window and the doll on the ground, watching. That night, Priya wouldn't go to sleep. She sat upright, in bed, rocking slightly, humming a tune no one recognized. Her eyes were distant, glazed, as if someone else was behind them. Mrs. Sharma knelt beside her. "Priya, sweetheart, talk to me, please." "She's coming," the girl whispered. "She's not happy with what you read," the house moaned. Literally moaned, as if the walls exhaled, disturbed by the mention of what was never meant to be remembered. Suddenly, the mirror above Priya's dresser cracked from the inside. A spiderweb fracture burst from the center outward. At the very core of the break, Munni's reflection. And yet, she wasn't facing the mirror. She was facing them, from behind. The doll's head turned slowly in real life, matching the cracked reflection. Mr. Sharma shouted and hurled the lamp across the room, but it didn't reach Munni. The lamp fell short. The electricity cut, and Priya began to scream, not in fear but in laughter. She laughed until her throat was raw, then she collapsed. When she woke up, she didn't remember her name, didn't remember her parents. Only the doll. "Munni," she said plainly. "She's inside now." Mrs. Sharma couldn't breathe. They rushed Priya to the hospital, but every scan, every test came back normal. "She's completely healthy," the doctor said, "but it's like she's inhabited." Mr. Sharma broke down in the corridor. Mrs. Sharma returned home alone. Munni was waiting in Priya's room, and the mirror had a new word scratched into it: soon. The next 48 hours unraveled everything the Sharmas believed to be true about the world. Mrs. Sharma tried praying, tried burning sage. She even scattered sea salt along the windowsills and under the doors, following every piece of spiritual advice she could find. But Munni never moved. She didn't have to. Now Priya was doing it for her. The girl started speaking in tongues, an ancient dialect neither Mr. nor Mrs. Sharma could identify. Her voice would shift mid-sentence as though another being was taking over. At times high-pitched, other times deep and unnatural. One afternoon, while cleaning Priya's room, Mrs. Sharma found dozens of tiny drawings hidden beneath the mattress. Each one was the same, a child, burned and faceless, surrounded by shadows, with Munni standing in the foreground, always whole, always smiling. And then there was the final drawing. This time, it was their house, and all three of them, Mr. Sharma, Mrs. Sharma, and Priya were shown inside, sleeping peacefully, but Munni was outside, digging. That night they heard the sound, scraping, from underneath the house, like nails clawing through dirt. Mr. Sharma grabbed a flashlight and rushed outside, still in his slippers. He followed the sound around the side of the house to the patch of soil near the kitchen wall. Something had been disturbed. He began to dig. Just beneath the surface, less than 2 feet down, he found a box, wooden, old. He opened it. Inside, hair, braided, burnt at the ends, and beneath it, tiny charred bones. The ground shook. The flashlight died, and behind him, from the shadows, he heard a giggle. "Don't take her things," a voice hissed. He turned. Nothing was there, but when he looked back at the box, it was gone. So was the dirt, perfectly leveled, as though it had never been touched. By the next morning, something in the house had shifted. It wasn't just the temperature or the silence, or even the shadows that now moved when no one else did. It was something deeper. Priya had changed. She no longer responded to her name. She referred to herself only as we. Her eyes would dart around the room like she was seeing things no one else could. And Munni never left her side. The final straw came when Mrs. Sharma woke up to the sound of music playing softly through the walls. An old, scratchy lullaby, one she had never heard before. Following the sound, she ended up in the attic. She hadn't been up there since they first tried to seal Munni away. The space was filled with old toys, boxes of forgotten clothes, and in the center, Priya, sitting in a circle of ash. The doll in her lap. Around them, written in a language unknown, were symbols glowing faintly in red. Mrs. Sharma rushed forward, but the moment her foot touched the ash, she was thrown back. A wall of invisible force. From within the circle, Priya looked up. "They said it has to be completed," she said calmly. "What has to be completed?" Mrs. Sharma screamed. "The family," Priya whispered. "She needs a new one." Behind her, Munni blinked. For the first time. That night, the house was found burning to the ground. No survivors were reported, but among the ash, the investigators found something strange. A doll, untouched. Clean, porcelain skin uncracked, eyes open, still smiling. They placed her in an evidence bag. And somewhere deep inside the police station storage room, the lights began to flicker. The temperature dropped, and from behind the door marked "Unclaimed Items" came the faint sound of a child's voice. "Let's play." Chapter 2. The Evidence Locker. Police Constable Arjun Mehra didn't believe in ghosts. He believed in crime. Motive, evidence, blood, bullets. Things that left trails. Things you could explain. He had worked in Mumbai's Central Precinct for nearly 13 years. He'd seen things, awful things, murders, fires, suicides. But not once had he ever believed in the supernatural, until the day they brought in the doll. It arrived from a suburban fire in Bandra, a blaze that had consumed an entire house. 3 dead, no survivors, no bodies fully intact, except for the porcelain doll, found perfectly unharmed amid the wreckage. The case was filed as accidental, electrical short circuit. But there were whispers, especially from the first responders who swore the doll's eyes moved as they placed it in the evidence bag. Arjun ignored them. Dolls were creepy. People imagined things. Trauma did things to the brain. He was the one assigned to log the item. Item number 773, porcelain doll, charred case, no visible damage. He placed her on the second shelf in evidence locker 9B, right next to a rusted revolver and a sealed tin box of opium from a 1978 smuggling case. Then he turned off the lights, and as he walked away, he heard it, soft, barely a whisper, a child's giggle. He turned. Nothing. Just silence. The doll still sat there, same position, same smile. But Arjun could have sworn her head had been tilted a moment ago, slightly to the right. Now it faced straight forward. He blinked. Lack of sleep, he muttered. That night, the CCTV footage from Locker 9B cut out for exactly 3 minutes, and when it resumed, the doll had moved, just a few inches. But unmistakably moved. The next morning, Arjun called in the tech officer to check the locker's camera. Probably a glitch, the tech said. Happens when the system reboots. But Arjun knew better. There had been no reboot, no system update, just a blackout, and only in that room. Still, he said nothing. Just nodded, forced a chuckle, and carried on. But he couldn't help himself. That evening, he returned to Locker 9B. He stood in the doorway, lights off, doll in sight, motionless. He clicked his pen, took a slow step forward. "All right, sweetheart," he said sarcastically. "Let's see what kind of toy you really are." He held his phone up and snapped a picture. Flash. Nothing happened. Then another photo. Flash. Still nothing. He lowered the phone to review the images, but the photos were black. Just darkness. Except for one. A single frame showed the doll up close. Her, face inches from the lens, staring directly at him. Mouth slightly open, as if mid-whisper. But he hadn't been that close. He hadn't moved, and neither had she, right? His hand trembled. He deleted the photos and left without logging anything. The door slammed shut behind him. That night, Arjun dreamed of ashes, a room on fire, and a doll, always watching. Constable Arjun. Mehra didn't return to the evidence locker for 2 days. He found excuses, extra paperwork, patrolling duties, helping new recruits. Anything to avoid that hallway. But the dreams didn't stop. Each night the same thing, flames licking the walls, screams in the distance, the air thick with ash. And always, the doll, sometimes sitting, sometimes walking, sometimes staring through the dream itself. On the 3rd day, the call came in. A security guard assigned to the evidence room had been found unconscious just outside Locker 9B. No sign of struggle. No wounds. Just collapsed, pale, and shaking. The guard claimed he'd heard humming, soft, like a child's lullaby. He'd gone to check it out and remembered nothing else. Arjun was told to investigate. He didn't want to, but orders were orders. He approached the locker slowly, flashlight in hand, backup only minutes behind. He opened the steel door. The lights flickered, and there she was. Munni, still sitting on the second shelf. Only now her arms were open, as if waiting for an embrace, and on the floor before her, scrawled, in charcoal from one of the locker's fire-damaged items, were 2 words, "You came." Arjun's radio crackled, then screamed, a static burst that rattled his teeth. He dropped it instinctively, but as it hit the floor, it went silent. He turned to leave. The door was closed. He hadn't closed it. And then, from the shelf, he heard it. Munni. Not a whisper, a rasp. From behind him, he spun around. Flashlight. Beam slicing through the dark, but the shelf was empty. The doll was gone. Arjun's breath hitched. He backed against the wall, heart pounding. His flashlight flickered, then died. Total darkness. Only the sound of his own pulse pounding in his ears, and something else. Tiny footsteps, soft taps, tap, 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 circling him. He fumbled for his phone, using its dim light to scan the floor. Nothing. Until he heard something fall, a small object hit the ground by his feet with a porcelain clink. He pointed the phone down. It was Munni's head, just the head, detached. The eyes still open. Staring. A sound escaped Arjun's throat, half scream, half sob as he turned to run, but the door wouldn't open. He pushed, kicked, slammed into it. Nothing, and then he felt it, tiny fingers wrapping around his ankle. Cold. Firm. He looked down. Nothing was there. But he couldn't move. The light on his phone began to dim, even as the battery read full. A child's voice echoed through the dark. "You saw me." Then silence. The door burst open, backup finally arriving. Arjun stumbled out, drenched in sweat, face pale as bone. There was no sign of the doll, no prints, no charcoal, no porcelain head. But something had changed inside Arjun. And from that day on, he never entered another evidence locker again. But the CCTV in 9B still flickered at 3:03 every night. And always, on shelf 2, something shifted. Something smiled. They transferred Arjun to desk duty the next week. He didn't protest. He didn't speak about what happened. Not to his superior. Not to the department psychologist. Not even to his wife. He just said, "I need a change," and signed the papers. But late at night, when the station was quiet and only the hum of old fans filled the halls, Arjun would still glance down the corridor that led to the evidence room. And sometimes, only sometimes, he saw a shadow. Small, child-sized, motionless. Staring back, he told himself it was a trick of the light. Stress, fatigue, until the whispers began. At first, they came only when he was alone. "Let me out. I remember you. Play with me." He thought he was losing his mind. Went to the temple, performed a puja, carried tulsi leaves in his pocket. But the voice followed. Then the nightmares changed. No longer the house on fire. Now it was the station flooded, drowning in black water, and floating on the surface always was the doll. One night, he found a note slipped beneath his locker. It wasn't typed, it wasn't handwritten, it was carved. Pressed deep into the paper, the message was simple. "You brought me here." Arjun didn't sleep that night. He sat in his living room, lights on, incense burning, a cricket bat across his lap like a weapon. His eyes darted to every shadow, every creak in the house made his pulse jump. He was losing control. Around 3:03 a.m., the power went out. Not just a flicker, complete blackout. And then came the sound, not from the door, not from outside, from within the room, a scraping, like porcelain against tile. He swung the flashlight up, heart hammering, and there she was, Munni, sitting upright on his coffee table, arms open, grinning wider than ever. But he hadn't brought her home. He hadn't gone near the evidence locker in days. He stood frozen, light trembling in his hand, and then his phone lit up. Unknown caller. He answered it, static. Then a whisper, "I missed you." He threw the phone across the room. It shattered against the wall, but the whisper didn't stop. It was inside the room now, inside his head. He dropped to his knees, covering his ears, eyes shut tight. And when he opened them, she was gone. But something was left behind. A drawing, crayon on the living room wall. A stick figure, him, and beside it, a smaller figure holding hands with the stick, Arjun. Labeled simply family. The next day, Arjun didn't report for duty. He left his badge on the kitchen table. No note, no explanation, just silence. When his colleague Inspector Balan arrived later that evening to check on him, the house was eerily quiet. Everything was in place. Dishes washed, lights off, curtains drawn, but the living room wall still bore the crayon drawing. Family. And beneath it, something new, a third figure, taller, hair like threads of fire. The word beneath it read, Mother. Balan called for backup. The house was searched. No sign of Arjun, but in the upstairs closet, stuffed behind winter blankets, they found the doll, wrapped in silk cloth, eyes wide open, a slip of paper tied around her wrist. In shaky handwriting, she won't let go. She chose me. The doll was bagged and returned to evidence again, but the officer who placed it on the shelf Rookie Constable Sagar Naik never returned to work. He was found in his flat 3 days later, sitting in the corner, rocking back and forth, repeating one phrase over and over, "Don't look in her eyes." That night, the lights in evidence locker 9B went out for exactly 33 minutes. Not a city outage, just one room. When the power returned, the CCTV footage resumed, but the feed was scrambled. Distorted, in frame, the shelf, empty, then static, then a single clear frame, the camera lens cracked, and behind the fractured glass, Munni, closer than she should have been, as if she was the one recording. The tech team dismissed it, said it was data corruption. Light bounce, interference, but the precinct knew better. They moved the doll to a locked vault on the basement level, sealed, soundproof. A sign was posted on the vault door, "Do not open, do not move, do not touch." And for a while, it was quiet, until a new janitor named Suresh, unaware of the legends, unlocked the room to mop the floor. He turned on the light and froze. The doll wasn't on the table. She was standing upright, facing him, arms outstretched, and behind her, scratched into the concrete wall in deep, jagged gouges. Next. Chapter 3. The Vault Whisperer. Suresh's wife said he came home different that night, quiet, jumpy, like his soul was listening to something she couldn't hear. He wouldn't talk about what happened in the basement, only stared out the window at night, clutching a prayer bead he never used before. The next day, he didn't show up for his shift. The day after that, his neighbor filed a noise complaint, said they heard singing, a lullaby, coming from his apartment all night long. When the landlord forced the door open, they found the apartment empty, no furniture, no clothing, no sign of Suresh, except one thing. A child's drawing taped to the fridge showed a stick figure holding hands with a doll. They were inside a room marked with a sign, "Home." Back at the station, Officer Tara Jha was assigned to inventory the vault. She was meticulous. No nonsense. The kind of officer who didn't believe in ghosts, curses, or that Bollywood horror nonsense, as she called it. She entered the vault, alone. The light above flickered as she stepped inside, and the first thing she saw, the evidence table, empty, except for a single phrase, carved deep into the steel. Tara. She froze. The air felt thick, not cold, but heavy, like breathing through wet cotton. Tara moved closer, inspecting the carving, fresh, clean edges, still flaking metal shavings. She looked around, checked the sealed evidence bins, the walls, even under the table. No doll, no sign of tampering. And yet she felt it, that pull, like someone, or something, was behind her, watching. She turned fast, gun instinctively drawn. But there was only the vault door, open, still propped with the metal latch. She shook her head, cursed under her breath, and reached into her pocket to radio dispatch. The radio buzzed, then died. A new sound emerged, not static, not a voice. Music, soft, faint, like a music box being played from underwater. It was coming from the locked cabinet, the one that had been sealed. Since the doll's return, Tara approached, knelt, pressed her ear against the metal. The tune stopped. Then a whisper, "Do you want to see?" The cabinet door swung open on its own, empty. But Tara didn't scream until she turned around and saw her own face staring back at her, painted on the doll. Tara stumbled back, slamming against the vault wall, her face on a doll's face, painted crudely but unmistakably her, the same eyes, the same mole under the left cheek, and written across the doll's tiny dress in thin red stitching, "Officer Tara Jha, Mumbai Police." The lights above began to flicker violently. One bulb burst, then another, then another. She raised her gun. The doll didn't move, but she could hear it breathing. Yes, breathing a slow, rattling inhale and a wet, gurgling exhale, coming from behind the doll. From the dark corner of the vault, Tara aimed her weapon. "Show yourself," she shouted. Nothing, just the echo of her own voice, then the sound of tiny feet scurrying. She spun toward the door, closed, slammed shut. The lock spun on its own. She rushed to it, pounded her fists, screamed into the concrete. No one came, only silence. And then, soft and deliberate, the same lullaby began again. But this time, it wasn't just music. It was a voice, singing, a little girl's voice, and the lyrics chilled Tara to her bones. "Sleep, sleep, little face, in my arms you'll find your place. Mommy's gone, daddy too, now I'll be the one for you." Tara turned. The doll was gone. She backed into the corner, gun still drawn, light trembling in her hand. "Get it together," she muttered. "It's just a prank. Some sick setup." But she didn't believe her own words. The air had grown colder. Not just physically, but emotionally. It was grief, a presence of mourning and longing. Tara checked her phone. Dead. Then, slowly from the back of the vault, the shadows deepened, and from them emerged a silhouette. Small, slender, a child. No face, just a shape, holding something. The doll. But this time its mouth was moving. Whispers, ancient. Crooked syllables that scraped against her eardrums. Her limbs grew heavy. Her vision blurred. She dropped to her knees. The child figure stepped closer, closer. Then, the vault lights cut out completely and everything went black. Screams echoed through the walls. But when the other officers finally forced the vault door open, it was empty. No Tara, no doll. Just one thing remained, a crayon drawing taped to the inside of the door. 3 figures, the doll, the child, and Tara, all holding hands, smiling. Underneath, one word, forever. Chapter 4. The tape that shouldn't exist. The tape wasn't supposed to exist, but somehow it did. It arrived in a plain brown envelope, no postage, no return address, just a smudged fingerprint on the corner. It was left on the desk of Inspector Mishra, who had just been promoted to oversee internal affairs. Inside the envelope was a mini DV cassette, an old format nobody used anymore. Along with it was a note. "Watch it alone. Do not share. Do not log." Mishra was skeptical. He figured it was some prank from the boys downstairs. But curiosity won. He had an old mini DV player at home, a relic from when his daughter was born. He hadn't touched it in years. That night, he dusted it off and pushed the tape in. The footage was grainy, black and white. No timestamp, no metadata, at first just static. Then, a dark room, concrete walls, a steel table, the evidence vault, and in the center, Tara Jah, sitting, smiling, not tied, not bound, just sitting, facing the camera. Munni sat on the table in front of her. The tape had no audio, but Tara's mouth moved. She was talking to the doll for 7 full minutes. Then she stopped, turned, and stared directly at the camera. Her smile widened, and she mouthed one word, "Run." Mishra froze. The word echoed in his head as if he'd heard it aloud. He rewound the footage, played it back frame by frame, same result. The moment Tara mouthed "run," the screen glitched. For exactly 1 second, the image warped. He paused it. In that distorted frame, the table was empty. No Tara, no doll. But there, just behind where Tara had been seated, stood a figure, faint, childlike, watching. Dev hit eject and turned off the player. His hands were trembling. He put the tape back into the envelope and sealed it in an evidence bag. Whatever this was, it was no prank. He didn't sleep that night. He went back to work the next morning and ordered a full sweep of the basement. Vault. They found nothing out of place. except for one thing, a single photo, printed on old photographic paper, sitting on the evidence table. It showed Dev at his desk, sleeping. The picture had been taken from inside his house. The timestamp read, 3:03 a.m., and on the back, in scrawled pencil, "You watched. Now she sees you." Mishra didn't tell anyone, not because he didn't want to, but because he couldn't. Every time he tried, his voice trembled. His breath caught. He'd get as far as, "I think something's wrong," before the lights would flicker or a door would slam shut on its own. So he started writing everything down. In notebooks, on napkins, in texts he never sent, and that's when he noticed it. Every morning his notes were gone, not moved, gone, even digital ones, deleted from cloud backups, phone wiped, everything except the envelope and the tape. That stayed. He locked it in his filing cabinet, secured it with 2 padlocks, and still found it moved by morning. Only slightly, but moved. Then came the voices. Faint at first, like a whispering conversation just outside his door. Always at 3:03 a.m., he recorded it once, played it back the next day. It was just static, until the 3:03 mark. Then came the sound of a girl humming and a whisper. He watches her now. That was the night his daughter screamed. He ran into her room. She pointed at the corner. "She's back," she said. "Who?" "The doll." He looked. There was nothing there, but the closet door was open, and something had written inside, finger drawn across the dust of the back wall. "Play." He told his team he was exhausted. Family matters, he said. Needed rest. But the truth was far darker. He needed time to figure out what was happening. He drove 3 hours out of Mumbai to a monastery known for spiritual cleansing. A place his grandmother used to whisper about during monsoon storms. The monks there didn't speak much, but when he showed them the photo, the one taken of him in his sleep, the head monk turned pale. He pointed to the background. There, barely, visible in the shadows of the image, was a figure, a little girl, smiling, holding something, a doll. The monk asked where the photo came from. When Mishra explained, the monk whispered one word, "Uninvited." Then he burned the photo. Mishra stayed the night, but sleep wouldn't come. At 3:03 a.m. the temple bell rang, on its own. The monks rushed from their rooms panicked. They found a single candle lit in the center of the meditation hall, and at its base, the envelope, sealed, untouched, but no longer empty. Inside it was a second tape and a single note. "Now she knows where you hide." Mishra didn't open the second tape. He buried it, literally. He wrapped it in 3 layers of muslin cloth, sealed it with wax, and dug a hole behind the monastery's banyan tree at sunrise. He prayed as he buried it, but the monks did not join him. They had closed the meditation hall. All mirrors were covered. The children were sent away. That evening, Mishra asked the head monk what uninvited meant. The monk only said, "Some spirits do not knock. They do not wait to be seen. They simply arrive and stay." Mishra returned to his room. He packed his things, and then he saw it, sitting on the bed. A drawing, crude, made with ash and flower petals. It showed a tree and a doll, buried beneath it, and, next to the tree, his own face, eyes scratched out. Mishra left the monastery that night. He didn't wait for the sun to rise. He didn't speak to the monks. He just drove. He didn't care where. He just needed to be far from that place, from her. But the road twisted endlessly. The GPS glitched, recalculated, froze. It took him through unfamiliar terrain, dense trees, no streetlights. Fog settled across the windshield like breath. And then his car stopped, dead. Not a mechanical failure, no sputter, no warning. It just died. He stepped out into the fog and realized He was back. The banyan tree. The monastery. But how? He walked slowly, trembling. There, behind the tree, the spot he had dug. Open. Soil scattered. Empty. The second tape was gone, but in its place, a doll, seated neatly on the dirt, hands folded, and in its lap, a photo of his daughter, sleeping. Mishra ran, not back to the car. He didn't even check if it would start. He ran down the dirt road, through the fog, through the trees, until the terrain shifted beneath his feet. Asphalt. Civilization. He flagged a passing truck and begged the driver to take him anywhere with a phone signal. He didn't speak for most of the ride, just sat in silence. Clutching his hands together, the image of that photo burned into his memory. His daughter, innocent, sleeping, in danger. The moment they reached the edge of a signal zone, he called home. No answer. He called his neighbor, begged her to check on his house. 10 minutes later, she called back. His daughter was safe, asleep, but there was something else. She's holding a doll, the neighbor said. A new one? He asked. I don't know, she replied. I've never seen it before, but she says it's her friend, says she found it in her closet this morning. Mishra's legs went weak. The driver asked if he was all right. He lied. He asked to be dropped at the nearest bus station. He was going home, but he wasn't going alone. He opened his briefcase, pulled out his gun, and loaded it, because if what followed him from that monastery was inside his house, then this time someone wasn't leaving. The house was quiet when he arrived. Too quiet. Not the silence of sleep, but the kind that held its breath. He unlocked the door and stepped inside, weapon drawn, scanning every corner. The lights flickered. Something moved down the hall. He called out to his daughter. No answer. He made his way to her room, slowly pushing the door open. There she was, safe, peaceful, clutching the doll to her chest. The doll stared straight at him. He reached for it. The lights cut out. Darkness swallowed everything. He fumbled for the flashlight in his pocket and turned it on. The bed was empty. His daughter was gone. Only the doll remained, now sitting upright, smiling. In its lap, a third tape, labeled in red ink. Watch me, or she stays. Mishra screamed, but the house absorbed it, and somewhere, far away, a little girl laughed. Chapter 5. 3 times played. The tape sat in his hands like a living thing. Inspector Mishra didn't want to watch it. Every instinct screamed to destroy it, burn it, bury it, throw it into the sea, but his daughter was gone and the note was clear. Watch me, or she stays. He didn't waste time. He plugged the old DV player into the TV, heart pounding like a drum. The image flickered and then it began. It wasn't like the others. This one had sound. It began with the lullaby, soft, sweet, innocent, and over it, a girl's voice. Not Tara, not anyone he recognized. You played once, she watched. You played twice, she followed. Now you've played a third time, and she belongs. The screen showed footage of his daughter, home videos, birthday candles, Christmas morning, her first steps. Then the footage glitched, and the doll appeared, always in the background, in the corner, behind the couch, outside the window, in footage that was years old. She's always been watching. The tape crackled, twisted, and the audio pitched downward like a scream slowed to a crawl, then silence. Then one final image, his daughter, eyes open, mouth sewn shut, and the words 3 times played. 3 lives claimed. She is one of us now. Mishra yanked the tape from the player and hurled it across the room. It didn't shatter. It landed gently, too gently, as if it had never fallen at all. He ran to his daughter's room, still empty, still, cold, but the doll was gone. In its place on the pillow lay a torn piece of paper. You watched. She saw. Now come find us. He called every expert he knew, occultists, paranormal investigators, historians. One man responded, an archivist named Ajay Bhagat. He claimed to have heard whispers of Munni before, long before the Sharma case. Your tape, Ajay said over the phone, was never meant to be watched 3 times. 3 completes the bond. 1 to awaken, 2 to invite, 3 to bind. Mishra didn't care about rules, he just wanted his daughter. Ajay hesitated. There's one place, he said. A place she was seen last, a house in Jogeshwari. It was built over something older. Mishra grabbed his keys. Ajay warned, don't go in alone. But Mishra was already gone. The house in Jogeshwari had no official records. It was there, physically, but not on blueprints, not on city maps. No one in the neighborhood knew who owned it, or who lived there last. Some said it was cursed, others said it wasn't even a house, but a place that pretended to be one. Mishra stood outside its rusted gate. The building was decrepit, covered in vines. The windows were black as if they swallowed light. The air was wrong. Heavy, not hot. Not cold, just wrong. He stepped inside. The moment his foot crossed the threshold, the door creaked shut behind him. The floor groaned under his weight. He called out his daughter's name. No reply, only the sound of something upstairs, pacing, tiny, feet and laughter. He moved slowly, gun drawn, flashlight in hand. The house smelled of burnt sugar and mildew, like something sweet. Long decayed. He passed old portraits, faces scratched out, mirrors draped in cloth, dolls, dozens of them, sitting on shelves, on furniture, staring. Then one blinked. He fired, the head cracked. Porcelain shattered, but beneath the broken shell, something pulsed, something alive. The laughter grew louder. He climbed the stairs. Each step felt longer than the last. Time distorted. The house pulsed, alive, waiting. At the top of the stairs, the hallway twisted, literally. It bent to the left, like melted wax, walls closing in, sloping downward as if pulling him toward something. Mishra pressed on, his flashlight flickered. The walls were covered in drawings, childlike, stick figures holding hands, a doll in the middle. But the faces weren't blank, they were real. Photos. Cut. Out, taped over the sketches, Tara Suresh Arjun, his own, and in the center, his daughter, labeled not with her name, but one word, ours. He reached the final door. It opened before he could touch it. The room inside was candle-lit. Dozens of them, all forming a circle, and in the center, his daughter. Standing, eyes closed, Munni in her arms. Her mouth moved, but the voice that came out was not hers. It was layered, deep and high, child and ancient, a chant, something old, something inhuman. Mishra stepped forward. She opened her eyes. They weren't hers anymore. They were glass, reflecting him, trapping him, and Munni smiled wider. Mishra raised the gun. His hand shook. He couldn't aim at her, not when she still looked like his daughter, but the doll. He aimed at Munni before he could fire. The candles extinguished, all of them. The room went pitch black. Then a voice whispered from everywhere at once, "You cannot kill what was never born." The room changed. The walls peeled away. Now he stood in the orphanage from the 1892 fire. He recognized it from the drawing in Savita's scroll. Only now, it was whole, unburned, alive. Children played in the distance, but their laughter was wrong, glitchy, looped, and each of them had no face. Only hollow skin where eyes and mouths should be, and in the middle of the courtyard, a girl, small, still, holding Munni. She looked up. She had Mishra's daughter's eyes, but they were set in someone else's face. He stepped forward. The Ground cracked, the sky darkened, and the faceless children turned. They began to walk toward him, slowly, in unison. And behind them, the doll opened its mouth. Inside was fire and voices, all of them chanting one word: stay. Mishra fired, once, twice. The bullets passed through the children like mist. They kept walking. The ground beneath him turned to ash. He turned to run, but there was no door, no wall, no sky, only the orphanage, and the fire, everywhere. Then, his daughter screamed, not a ghostly scream, not distant, real, human. He followed the sound, pushing through the burning walls, through the flames that didn't burn his skin. He found her, tied to a chair in a room of dolls. Each one had a different face, all of them alive, blinking, mouths twitching. He ran to her, untied the ropes. She collapsed into his arms. "Papa," she sobbed. She said if I played, I could see Mommy again. Mishra's heart broke. He held her tightly. Then he heard the sound behind him, the scraping, porcelain on wood, Munni crawling. Her limbs bent backwards, her face twisted into something that no longer resembled a doll, but a mouth, endless and screaming. He turned, shielded his daughter, and lit the match. He doused the room in kerosene from the broken lantern. The flame took quickly. The dolls shrieked, Munni lunged, and everything went white. White everywhere. Light burned through Mishra's eyes, searing, down into his chest. Then darkness. Then silence. He woke up coughing on a cold floor. It was stone. He blinked. He was outside, the house in Yogeshwari. Gone, reduced to a smoldering pit, still radiating heat. His hands were burned, his throat dry. But his daughter... She lay beside him, unconscious but breathing, alive. Mishra broke down, sobbing, shaking, thankful. He didn't know how they escaped, or what truly happened inside that place. But something told him the fire had severed the bond. For now. In the weeks that followed, they moved, left Mumbai, started over in a quiet village where no one knew their name. He burned every tape, every photo, every file. He told his daughter Munni was just a dream. She believed him. She started sleeping again, smiling again. But every night at exactly 3:03 a.m., Mishra wakes up and checks her room, just to be sure, and some nights he swears he hears a whisper through the walls. Play again. Chapter 6. The Collector's House. In a quiet corner of Alibag, nestled behind thick trees and locked gates, there stood a house no one visited. Locals called it the Collector's House, not because of taxes or antiques, but because the man inside collected things, things that shouldn't exist. His name was Rudra Sen, once a scholar, then a recluse, now something far stranger. He wore thick glasses, rarely spoke above a whisper, and hadn't left his property in over 10 years. He said the world had turned inside out, that evil wasn't loud anymore. It was quiet, patient, and it had a name. Munni. Rudra had tracked her legend for decades. She wasn't just a ghost, he said, not a spirit or a demon. She was older than all of it. She was the story itself, the pattern, the game. She wasn't summoned, she was chosen, and she chose back. In his study were files, photos, threads of red string linking disappearances, fires, tapes, and in the center of it all, a circle, empty, waiting for one more name. Rudra picked up a pen and wrote, Mishra. 2 days later, Rudra heard a knock at the door. He hadn't had visitors in a decade. Through the frosted glass, he saw a silhouette, thin, tall, familiar. When he opened the door, Mishra stood there, burned hands, hollow eyes, and beside him, his daughter. Rudra stepped aside. They didn't speak at first, not until the door was locked, not until the girl was asleep upstairs. Mishra said one word, help. Rudra nodded. He poured tea, cleared the table, laid out old maps, faded journal pages, photos with names scribbled on the backs. "This began before any of us," he said. "Before cameras, before tape, before fire." Mishra's hands clenched. "She won't stop," he said, "even after the house, even after the tape." Rudra replied, "Because you didn't end her, you completed her." He pointed to the red circle on the wall. Mishra's name now pulsed, literally pulsed, like something alive. "Then what do we do?" Mishra asked. Rudra's voice dropped to a whisper. "We go to where she was born." They left before dawn. Rudra carried nothing but a leather-bound book and a tin case filled with salt, matches, and a single iron needle. Mishra brought the last surviving photograph of his daughter before the haunting began. The journey was long, past highways, past hills, into a place not marked by signs. A village once called Kalinagar, now abandoned, swallowed by vines and time. Her ashes were never found, Rudra said, because she wasn't buried. They entered the ruins of the old orphanage. What remained was skeletal, charred walls, collapsed beams, and silence that pressed down like a weight. Mishra's daughter didn't speak the entire ride, but the moment they crossed the threshold, she pointed to the farthest room, the nursery. Inside was a black stain on the floorboards, untouched by time. In the center, a circle of ash, and in the ash, a single porcelain eye, Munni's. It blinked. Rudra dropped to his knees. He opened the leather-bound book. The pages were handwritten, some in Sanskrit, some in Latin, some in Apai, language neither of them recognized. He began to draw. Salt around the ash, matches, lit one by one and placed in a triangle around the eye, then the iron needle. He pricked his thumb. Let the blood drip onto the ash. Mishra stared, breath shallow. "What is this?" he asked. "A binding," Rudra whispered. "But not for her, for us." The floorboards rattled, the walls groaned. Something beneath the orphanage stirred. Mishra's daughter stepped into the salt circle. Neither of them told her to. She knelt by the porcelain eye and whispered, "You don't have to be alone anymore." The ash erupted, a scream, not from above or below, but from within. Child's scream followed by hundreds more. Rudra chanted faster. The air cracked, and for a moment they saw her, Munni, whole, burned, blackened, eyes full of centuries, and she was crying, not in rage, in pain. Munni reached out, not to harm, but to touch. Her hand hovered over Mishra's daughter's cheek. A single ember floated from her charred fingertips. The girl didn't flinch. She smiled, then whispered, "It's okay now. You can rest." The entire room fell silent. Even Rudra's chanting stopped. The ash circle stopped burning. The floor no longer shook. Munni's body flickered, like smoke caught in wind. Then she smiled, a real smile, soft, gentle, and she vanished. The porcelain eye turned to dust. Mishra collapsed to his knees. His daughter hugged him. Rudra closed the book. No one spoke. Outside, for the first time in a century, the sun touched the orphanage floor, and the circle on the wall, back in the collector's house, faded, red string curling back. The last name burned away. Mishra was no longer part of the story, because the story had ended. For now. Chapter 7. What was buried below. Rudra thought it was over. The orphanage had been cleansed. The eye was gone. The child released. But something inside him said otherwise. There were still names on the wall in his study. New names. Ones he didn't write, and every night at exactly 3:03 he heard footsteps in the attic, but there was no attic in his house. One evening, while Mishra and his daughter slept, Rudra crept into the cellar with a flashlight and a chisel. He began to tap at the base of the back wall. Stone flaked away easily, too easily. Behind it, a tunnel, crawling deep beneath the house. He hesitated, then entered. The air changed instantly. No oxygen, no moisture, just cold and silence. He lit a match. The walls pulsed, flesh, veins. This wasn't a tunnel, it was alive, and it was waiting. Rudra walked forward slowly, match trembling between his fingers. Each step echoed, not with sound, but with memories. Whispers flared around him, children laughing, crying, calling names that no one should remember. The tunnel opened into a vast domed chamber. At its center, a pit, circular, surrounded by dolls. Hundreds, all identical, all Munni, each one faced outward, as if guarding what lay beneath. Rudra stepped closer. The dolls didn't move, but he felt their gaze. Heavy, judging. He peered into the pit. Darkness, but not empty. He dropped the match. It vanished before hitting the bottom. Swallowed, then a sound rose up. Not from the pit. From behind him, a voice. His own, whispering, "You should not have come alone." He turned. The dolls had moved, formed a circle around him, and at the far side of the chamber, a door opened. But there were no walls, only teeth. Rudra stepped backward, flashlight flickering in his shaking hand. The chamber's floor groaned beneath. His boots, flesh stretching, not stone cracking. The teeth framing the doorway dripped with black ichor. He blinked, and for a heartbeat, he saw flashes. The orphanage on fire, Munni screaming in silence. A girl with no face, a mirror shattering into 100 eyes. Then the teeth parted, and a figure crawled through, not walking, crawling. Disjointed limbs bent at wrong angles, its head twisted upside down, dragging across the floor. It wore a dress. Familiar. It was Munni, or something pretending to be, but her face was made of others. Collage of every victim she had ever claimed. Tara's mouth, Suresh's brow, Mishra's daughter's eyes. She reached for Rudra. He couldn't move, paralyzed. The dolls closed in. The chamber breathed. The pit behind him hissed, and the voice spoke. Again, "If you take one step further, you become the next story." Rudra closed his eyes and stepped forward, into the teeth, into the dark. The moment he crossed the threshold, everything stopped. The whispers, the breathing, even the dolls froze. He was no longer in the chamber. He was in a nursery, not burned, not broken. Perfect, clean except the crib, inside it. A bundle of black cloth. It moved. He approached, reached down, unwrapped the cloth slowly. Inside, a porcelain doll, eyes open, mouth sewn shut. It looked up at him and mouthed, "One word, Papa." Rudra staggered back, but behind him now, another crib, and another, all filled with dolls, all whispering his name. "Rudra, Rudra, Rudra," he screamed, and the walls of the nursery cracked, splintered, bleeding light. And then he woke up, in the pit, alone, and above him, the dolls, sealing the opening shut, one by one. Rudra clawed at the dirt walls, screamed until his throat tore, but no one heard. Not Mishra, not his daughter, only the dolls, staring down, judging, waiting, time. Slipped, he slept, woke, slept again. There was no light, no sound, just breathing, not his own, deeper, older, from beneath the pit. Then one day, a hand reached through the dirt, not human, not doll, something between. It gripped his arm, pulled. He didn't resist. He couldn't. When Rudra opened his eyes, he wasn't in the pit anymore. He was back in his house, at his desk, book open, candle lit. The wall before him, empty, no names, no string, just a circle drawn in fresh blood, and in the center, a single word, yours. Rudra didn't move, didn't blink. The candle burned lower, his heartbeat slowed, the house was silent. Too silent. Even the walls didn't creak. He stood, walked to the mirror above the fireplace. It was covered in dust, but he hadn't touched it. He wiped the glass clean and saw himself, except it wasn't. His reflection smiled. He did not. The reflection raised its hand. He didn't. Then it pointed at the circle on the wall. It glowed, pulsed, started to spin. A voice echoed from behind the mirror. If. Story's end, something else must begin. The wall cracked. Blood poured from the circle. It ran down to the floor, pooling around Rudra's feet. He didn't flinch. He knew. He was part of the next chapter, but not as the collector, as the collected. Mishra woke from a dream he didn't remember, sweating, shaking. The moon hung high above the window, casting pale lines across the floor. Something was wrong. He checked on his daughter, still sleeping, still safe. He crept downstairs. Rudra's door was open. The bed untouched. The study dark. He stepped inside. The wall was different. No maps, no string, only the circle, red fresh. In the middle, Rudra's glasses, folded, centered, waiting. Mishra reached for them, and the lights exploded. Glass rained down, a scream echoed, long, low, inhuman, and on the wall below the circle words appeared in dripping black. One left. Mishra stumbled backward. The scream faded, but the echo stayed inside him. The words on the wall began to drip, literally, forming a pool on the floor that smelled like burnt sugar and iron. He turned to run, but the study door had vanished. Only the wall and the circle. Now growing, spreading, it opened like an eye, and inside, a nursery, not his daughter's, not the orphanage, a different place. Dim, endless, with thousands of cribs, each one rocking, each one occupied. And at the end of the row, a throne, draped in ribbons made of hair, and on the throne, a woman, dressed in black lace, eyes sewn shut, hands folded, and in her lap, Munni, whole, new, waiting. Mishra stepped forward, drawn, compelled, and behind him the circle whispered, one left, one last, one chosen. Chapter 8, The Chosen One. Mishra didn't feel his feet move, but he was walking through the rows of cribs, each one rocking slightly, each one filled with something almost human. Some were sleeping, some stared at him, and some blinked with black glass eyes. He approached the throne. The woman didn't move. She wasn't breathing, but she was alive. Her lips, though sewn shut, twitched slightly. Munni sat on her lap. Still, perfect. Her dress no longer burned or torn, her face untouched by time, and in her arms, a doll, another one, with Mishra's daughter's eyes. She held it like a child holds a sibling, protective, possessive, and that's when Mishra realized this wasn't about possession. It was about inheritance. Mishra screamed, not in fear, in rage. He stepped forward, ready to snatch the doll from Munni's arms, but his feet locked. The air thickened. The ground pulsed beneath him, like breathing. The cribs began to rattle. One by one, the infants inside, if they were infants, sat up, all with different faces. Familiar. People, lost, people taken, all watching. He fell to his knees, his vision blurred. The woman on the throne opened her eyes. The stitches ripped themselves apart, and behind them, nothing. A void. She spoke in 100 voices, a chorus of victims, a choir of nightmares. She chose you to end it, or begin it again. Munni raised her hand, and the doll with Mishra's daughter's eyes floated gently toward him. It hovered over his arms. He hesitated. If he took it, what would happen? If he refused, what would she become? The woman on the throne leaned forward. Her breath was centuries old. "Choose, father." Mishra reached out. The doll trembled, not with fear, with anticipation. The chamber fell completely silent. Even the rocking cribs froze mid-sway. His fingertips touched the doll's porcelain arms, and then everything changed. He was no longer in the chamber. He stood in his home, but not as it was. The walls were older, the air darker, and there was no light, only the doll. In his arms, eyes open, and then blinking. His daughter appeared at the end of the hallway, but she was older, eyes sunken, mouth sewn shut. Behind her, the woman, her veil now lifted, no face beneath, only mirrors, each one showing a different version of Mishra. In each, he had made a different choice. In each, he had failed. The voice came again, "Choose again." He looked down. The doll was crying, real tears, and when they hit the floor, they burned. Mishra let go. The doll dropped, but before it could hit the floor, it vanished. So did the hallway, the mirrors, the throne, everything. He was falling through darkness, through memory, through every moment he failed to protect her, until he landed, not with a crash, but a gasp. He was back, in the orphanage, but this time it was burning, really burning. Smoke thick in his lungs. Munni stood in the center of the flames, untouched, his daughter beside her, eyes wide, reaching out. "Papa," she whispered, and for the first time she spoke. Munni turned, offered her hand. Mishra didn't run, didn't fight. He walked through the fire and took it. The fire didn't burn, it welcomed. The flames parted around Mishra and his daughter like hands making way. Munni stood between them, her porcelain face no longer twisted, but calm, serene. She took Mishra's hand and his daughter's, and together they walked through the flames. The orphanage collapsed behind them, but they didn't look back. There was nothing to go back to, only forward. When they emerged, they were in the collector's study, but the wall was blank, the circle gone, the string cut. The air was clean, still, and for the first time in years, Mishra's daughter laughed. Munni turned to him. Her eyes blinked once. Then she stepped into the candlelight and vanished. No scream, no curse, just peace. Outside, the sky was beginning to lighten. A new day. Mishra picked up his daughter, held her close, and whispered, "It's over." But deep in the shadows of a forgotten house, a box rocked gently on a shelf, and from inside it, a voice. "Play again?" If this story chilled your spine and made you look twice at the dolls in your home, don't let Munni stay in the shadows. Subscribe. Now to crazy real horror stories, and turn on notifications, because the next tale might be watching you already, and if you're brave enough, comment "Play again" below. Let's see who dares return for book 2. Subscribe, share, survive.